Well, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. It's Neale Petersen from Real Estate Investor. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, and with me is a very familiar face, Dolf de Roos. Dolf, it's fantastic seeing you again.
Likewise.
And it's also wonderful being in your city, and we're going to talk a little bit about property. But Dolf, I think let's talk a little bit about since the last time we got together, because I think the last time I did see you was in just after the Soccer World Cup in South Africa.
That's true, in Cape Town, yes.
In Cape Town. I think prior to that, I mean, a lot of our readers and our viewers out there are very familiar with Dolf because you did that roadshow in 2008. I think it was April, May 2008.
That's right, yes.
Tell us a little about the journey of property. What's actually happened and transpired? Because, you know, we've had this massive financial crisis. Tell us what's happened in the market, specifically here in the US.
All right.
Because I think we've kind of got the cold in South Africa of the international market. So
right.
Give us a little bit of a...
Sure. Well, Neale, thank you for that. Good to be with you again. And listen, I've been asked that same question over the decades, and usually the answer is, well, nothing much has happened. Real estate is real estate. If you want to get in on it, you better do it now, because tomorrow it's a day later. It goes up at a steady pace, and you just have to buy something. But dramatic things have happened, as you know, since we last met. In fact, since 2008. You alluded to the GFC, the global financial crisis. I think it's hit the real estate market in the United States about as hard as anywhere else. We've had a massive downturn. In fact, the stats just came out last week that since the peak prior to the downturn, prices on average in this country have come down by a massive 35%. Now, you may not think that that is very much, but 35% is horrendously large because that's the average. There are some suburbs, of course, in cities where prices haven't gone down at all, where they've still continued to climb. That means there are other places where they've come down by 70 or 80%. And, you know, for most people who owned those houses that came down in value, that, of course, is an atrocious thing because they're upside down, meaning their mortgages are now worth more than the value of the property. But the commensurate good side, if you're an investor, is that these bargains have come out of the woodwork that are truly unbelievable. There are no adjectives that are superlative enough to describe them. Let me give you an example, though. It is possible, and it has been possible for the last 2 years or so, to buy properties where they are cheaper than the cost of the land and the materials to build a house and the labor to assemble those materials into a house. In other words, why would you build for, say, $200,000 where you can buy an essentially equivalent home for $100,000? And this has been the norm for the last couple of years. Now, in case you're getting too excited and sitting up and saying, wow, let's jump in on this bandwagon, the market has evolved again in the last 4 months. It's now April 2012. Since the beginning of this year, the market has shown great signs of change. In fact, we showed you an article earlier this morning where property prices have been going up in parts of Phoenix at 10% a month. So that doesn't mean to say it's no longer possible to get in. I would rather get into a market that is on a steep upward curve after it's had this massive downward decline than get in when it's still going down, because people were saying 2 and 3 years ago, get in, prices are a lot lower than they were a year ago. But if they had gotten in 3 years ago, they would have suffered a further drop. So now's kind of the optimum time to get into the market after 4 years of decline, hitting an average of a 35% decline from its previous peak. Now they're starting to go up again.
Right.
And, you know, I can't make predictions, of course I do. I don't have a crystal ball, but then I count on them and say, well, actually I do, but it's proven itself not to be very accurate. But I will say this, I don't know when the turnaround is really going to kick in and how long it will last, but I believe that this turnaround and this upward swing, Neale, I think it's going to be the fastest turnaround in the history of real estate in this country. So I'm really excited. I'm happy that you're here looking at what there is. Some of the numbers are astounding. We looked at a property just over my left shoulder here, 19,000 square feet, so about 1,800 square meters. It's got 13 bedrooms. It is a huge monstrosity of house. It's beautiful, handcrafted, the whole thing. Every bedroom, for instance, has a different mosaic wood pattern on the floor and different tiles on the ceiling. Oh, that's really stunning. It first hit the market at $18 million. When it didn't sell, the seller dropped the price to 19. And yes, I said dropped it, so he raised it. And in the downturn, I believe it sold for something like $4 million. So they are the sort of massive price changes that we've seen here. And for those with the horsepower and astute enough, and also the gumption, I might add, because it's tough to buy a house for 4 million that was 19 million, or even a house for 80,000 that previously sold for $250,000 when you don't know if the market's going to drop further. So those with the gumption to do that, they have done exceedingly well. And I think the next year or so is going to be one of the best buying opportunities that we will see in our lifetimes, because I don't think I'm going to experience another downfall quite as dramatic as we've had here.
Okay. There's a lot of South Africans, Dolf, that are starting to look at the American market because of just the price point, and you touched a little bit on the price point. I mean, at some areas, and I'd like you to expand a little bit about. I mean, houses are going from, I've heard of $10,000 for, you know, on short sales, foreclosures, 40,000, that
Yes.
kind of thing. So, as an investor out there, I mean, there's really good value.
There's tremendous value. And listen, the risk though is in sharing spectacular deals. The masses are going to think that they can just, spend 5 minutes looking and find one. So, the good thing is that last week a friend of mine up in Las Vegas bought a condo for $26,000. Now,
Wow.
by anyone's analysis, that's pretty cheap. It's massively positive cash flow. That's almost next to nothing. But the truth is, you can't find 3 of those an hour. That is, you have to be on the ground there, and you'll be lucky to find one of those a month. But it's sort of a bonus. But having said that, there are still spectacularly good deals. Right now, the sweet spot for finding cheap homes is in, I believe, the $80,000 to $100,000 US price range.
Okay.
That's where you can reasonably expect to find a half-decent property. Not with 40% return, and not one that you can flip the next day for 30,000 profit. Because with the market having turned around, one thing that has happened that's really different, Neale, is that even a year ago, you could find a property that in today's market, or the then market, was worth 80. You could pick it up for 72. So theoretically, you could turn around and flip it and make $8,000 on it.
Right.
Today, a year later, that's not possible. That same property might now be going on the market at 90,000, and instead of it sitting around for 2 weeks waiting for someone to offer 85 or something, now they're getting 4 offers within 2 days for 95, 96, 98,000.
Wow.
Now, it's still a good deal,
Yeah.
because people are comparing it to the asking price instead of what its true inherent value is. Everything is still undervalued, but the market's waking up. Plus, the fact that you're looking at this, probably in South Africa, don't think you're the only country on this planet where people are looking at the opportunities here.
Yeah.
There are people coming over by the plane load from China and from Malaysia and from Singapore and from Australia and from New Zealand. And I dare say, with my exuberant encouragement of people to invest, I haven't hindered that process at the very least. So yeah, but that is what I call the sweet spot.
Okay.
But if you look long and hard, you'll find cheaper deals.
Okay, South Africans will be thinking finance. First of all, I know some of them, there are a lot of people doing cash deals.
Yes.
Is there finance available? I mean, is it possible?
It's a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
There is finance available.
Yeah.
The rates are, by world standards, incredibly low, 2.8%, 3.1%. But finance is now extraordinarily tough to get.
Sure.
So a lot of our investors, what they're doing is they are using what's called a hard money loan. Hard money is where you don't need collateral on the property. You don't need personal collateral. The only collateral is the actual property itself. So you borrow $80,000, you use the house as security, and they're generally short term for people doing what here is called fix and flip. So you renovate it and sell it on. I'm the long term hold guy. I think you know that. Yeah. Some of my clients have done really well out of fix and flips, and I encourage that. But every time you do 2 or 3 fix and flips, I encourage them to buy one for the long term, because ultimately you'll make more money by having the capital growth than by flipping them and having a taxable flipping industry. So you lose half to the tax man anyway.
So what kind of interest rates are we talking about for hard money there, Dolf?
For hard money, the extreme high end is 18%. Typically it's around 12%. It's supply and demand, of course.
Right.
It sounds high, but if you only borrow it for a quarter of the year, then you're down to 4.5% of the purchase price or the borrowed amount. And that's just a cost component of doing the flip. Another tactic they use, Neale, is they will use hard money to borrow it and renovate it and get the value up, and then they'll go for a conventional loan based on the new improved value. So that's easier to get.
Right.
So yeah, there are many ways of doing it. The thing is, you can't have all your ducks lined up in a row before you pull the trigger on a property. You'd never do it. It's a bit like if you were to cross town by car and you wanted to wait until all the lights were green before you left home, you'd just never leave and you'd never get there. In life, often we just have to go, and when you get a red light, you either slow down and hope it turns green before you come to a grinding halt, or you just come to a stop and wait for it to turn green, and then you're on your way again.
Fantastic. Yeah. What about the refinancing model? I mean, obviously that's kind of dried up over the last few years. You think it's going to make a comeback?
Oh, it will make a comeback, of course.
Okay.
Everything goes in cycles.
Right.
It's just a matter, you know, instead of lamenting that things aren't the way you'd like them to be, ask yourself, how can you take advantage of this situation? Is there an angle there that you can exploit or utilize that other people haven't cottoned on to yet? So yes, and even if you can't get, if as a South African national you find it extraordinarily difficult to get conventional financing here, go to some of your friends and say, listen, I'm looking at investing in America, here are the advantages, look what's happening to the rand, look what's happening to the real estate market there, come and watch this video, whatever you might say to them. But I'm looking for sponsors or investors to participate with me. If you put up the capital, I'll give you X% of the profits. You'll be surprised how many people say, wow, what a great opportunity. And don't say, well, if they were going to do that, why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they haven't had the time or found the time or the inclination to research it or do the work or go over there or whatever. So you'll be surprised. Or run an ad in the paper. Savvy investor looking at investing in America, interested partners who want to finance the deals, call me, you know, negotiate a deal.
Fantastic. But Dolf, I know there's exciting news for the viewers and the readers of Real Estate Investor. We're looking at getting a group to South Africa and to spend time with you and your team, and in fact with a South African team as well, Scott Picken and his team, and of course Brendan Brown, who's from USA Property South Africa.
Right.
So working with South Africans on the one side. I don't know if you just want to maybe touch on kind of on that.
Well, yes, we listen, there's nothing like being there on the ground in person. So you can read about it, you can even see videos about it, but when you're there, when you smell it, see it, feel it, touch it, you can kick it, and you're dealing in the local currency, the local accent, the local words. I mean, you know, I kind of speak English, but I've had to learn English 4 or 5 times over, because just to take one expression, and I don't even remember what it's called in South Africa, but what is called a foreclosure sale here.
Sale and execution.
A sale and execution?
That's it. Yeah,
all right,
but we understand.
In New Zealand, it's called a mortgagee in possession sale, and in the United Kingdom, it's called a redemption sale, and in Australia, it's called something else. You know, and it doesn't matter. Sure, you have to learn what it means. What we call a valuer down under here is called an appraiser, but it doesn't matter. You just learn the word. So there's nothing like being Johnny on the spot. And that's why, for those of you that will avail yourself of this opportunity, you'll have a chance to come over here and see for yourself the incredible, phenomenal opportunities that exist. One of the comments you made, Neale, I had a function to go to yesterday, and Neale and his team went out and looked at a few properties that we put together for them to look at. And your comments, if I'm not paraphrasing you incorrectly, were, by the time we got to the second one, we thought, what are we even doing looking at these? Yes, we can see the home, we can see it's on the market for 90,000, but we don't know the rental value, we don't know the school districts, we don't know how good it is, we don't know how far it is to the local shopping centres. So that's one of the challenges that you as a South African in South Africa will face if you want to buy things off a piece of paper or off the internet or something. But by coming over here, you'll get a feel for it. One of the things we discussed even on the short drive over here to shoot this video is that the suburbs change really rapidly. You can go from the most expensive part of Phoenix, which we're kind of in now, we're in a place called the Circle. You can go to an area that is not very appetizing at all in Phoenix standards anyway, by which I mean just the houses are cheaper, they're not as well looked after, the cars are a bit more run down and beat up and flaky paint on them and all that sort of thing. But the distance between the two can be very short here in Phoenix compared with other cities that I've lived in. And at first it's a bit disconcerting, but you just get used to it. It is what it is. The thing is not to question it or ridicule it or lament it or cry about it. The thing is to say, well, it is what it is. If you like living here or investing here, and you don't have to live here, by the way, to invest it. This is one of the best investment places on this planet, and while we're on this little tangent, I don't say that because I live here. I don't make this place out to be the great investment city that it is because I happen to live there. It's the other way around, folks. I live here because it's such a great investment place. If I'm going to invest in real estate, which is the bulk of what I do anyway, I'd rather live somewhere where the opportunities are huge and phenomenal and where I can walk and bike and drive to them than one where I have to catch a flight and need a passport and time zone change allowance and all that sort of thing to get there. So this is a great place to invest, but the suburbs do change quickly. So by being here, you're going to learn that, and that's why if you get the opportunity to come, you're going to have a blast and you might just make a lot of money too.
And just quickly, just expanding a little bit about the areas, because for a South African, the United States is massive. We're talking about 50 states. You've just explained why Phoenix is a fantastic model. So which states, which areas, just highlight it and just give us a short synopsis as to why.
Well, the short synopsis is this. There are two cities in this country which for the last 50 years have always ranked as either number 1 or number 2 in this country in terms of population growth and capital value growth of real estate. The third city is more than 50% below numbers 1 and 2. So for me, why would you bother with city number 18 or city number 26 when you can focus your efforts and your investment prowess in the two that are numbers 1 and 2?
Okay, which is?
Oh! Phoenix, Arizona, we're here. This is why I'm here. The only other one that is worth considering if you want to really fast track this, you know, making a bit of decent money, is Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
And the reason is capital growth rates in real estate are so closely aligned with population growth rates. You know, in Japan, it's the only Western nation where the population's in decline. It's currently around 130 million. They believe, Neil, that within a generation it's going to drop below 100 million. Is that good for the environment? Probably yes. Is it good for graffiti artists? Yes, there'll be fewer of them. It's good for so many things. Actually, they don't have much graffiti in Japan. But is it good for real estate values? No, real estate values are driven by population. So Phoenix and Las Vegas, Nevada, they have the highest both absolute and proportional population growths of any cities in this country. That's what's fueled the growth in real estate values. And you know, then we can go into reasons why they want to live here. That's another story, but just accept that they do, and therefore prices will continue to rise faster than a place you've never heard of, the backwaters of some, you know, Midwestern state that no one wants to go to. It's raining half the time, it's windy, there's no industry there.
And this is not going to be forever, Dolf. I mean, there's a window of opportunity now to get back in the market, isn't there?
I think so. As I said, I think we've got about a year where you're on the beginning of that J curve where prices still have a lot of room to go up, and where you won't have a first, you know, initial period of downfall of prices. I think it's about a year. It could be only 6 months. It could be 2 years. I don't know. But anyone who buys something now, who's bought something, I mean, we've had clients, they bought last year, for instance. I had one guy from New Zealand. He bought a house. I think he paid 84 for it, and he found out the next month its Zillow estimate, which is just a computerized estimate, was 81,000, and he was calling me all panic. I think I've lost 3,000. I said, it's a long-term thing. In 5 years' time, you'll be cursing me that I didn't force you to buy another one, let alone another 5.
Okay.
And already his house is now in the 90s. So, I mean, you know, you don't make any money till you sell it anyway, and we don't want to sell, you want the cash flow. Now is a great time, Neil.
Fantastic. Dolf, it's been fantastic chatting to you. I know we just don't have the time for our viewers and our readers out there. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And we, you know, I'm going to say to you guys, to our readers and to our viewers out there, you can have the opportunity to spend time with Dolf right here in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're going to give you details of that, and that's going to be attached at the end of this video. All you need to do is click below to this video, and we will give you that information there, the full program. So we are looking at round about, I don't want to actually give timing, but we are looking, and we are in May now. Oh, it's end of April, isn't it? It's almost May.
Yeah. I thought June time goes quickly.
But we are
almost May, yes.
We're looking at around about September.
So
to
around
set
September,
up.
yes.
September and also October.
Right.
So great. So guys, if you want to get involved, Dolf, wonderful chatting to you. Always fantastic chatting to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Dolf.
Thank you. I'll see you
Cheers.
soon.
Cheers. Bye. Cool.